I was diagnosed with cancer almost 2 years ago. I was in the hospital almost 2 months ago, and I started this YouTube channel almost a year ago. And here is a lovely update because so many people have been asking how I'm doing, and I'm just letting everyone know what's been going on because a lot has been going on these past few months. But just to introduce myself, my name is Petal Palmer, and on this channel I post anything involving medical mysteries and crime. If that is something that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing if you end up liking this video, or any of my other videos for that matter, because this one's a little different. All right, let's get into whatever I'm talking about. I don't know if you know this, but I'm kind of in a different space right now. So what had happened was, if you saw my community post, I posted that I graduated from university, and right now I'm currently in the process of moving. So right now we have just, whatever's going on in the background here. Have all my plants, of course, always gotta have the plants and whatever else is going on. That's just where I'm at right now. So new background, yay, how fun. So for the past few months, I've just been kind of out and about doing different things. I posted about my TED talk that I did, or sorry, my TEDx talk that I did. I was on Jubilee. I posted about that as well. And I graduated. I really wanted to get into my first video that I ever posted on my channel, which I posted in July of 2023. And that one is just about, I believe it's titled My Cancer Diagnosis, My Symptoms, something like that. I will put it on the screen. That one, I pretty much just told my story about how I was diagnosed with cancer and how I came to find out. I know some people have been commenting that that video was quite dragged out. It was, because, in theory, I could have just said, I was feeling sick, I went to the doctors, I got some labs done, and it showed that I had leukemia. But I actually did really want to put every single detail in there, because every time I thought about the story, especially at the time, and even now, I always just think about, there was just so many little things happening. It took me a long time to actually research that story, going through all of my old text messages, going through all of my pictures, going through my chart account, because I was like, oh my gosh, I actually remember that exact moment when this person texted me this exact thing and what I thought at that exact moment. And I had to just write it down, and I had to include it because it was really important. But another thing people have said is that it kind of just ended off at an interesting part, which I will say it kind of did. Pretty much ended it, I think, or I did end it when I got into the hospital. Essentially, to continue that story, August 24th, 2022, that's when I had the results come back that it looked like I had leukemia. I had to get an actual diagnosis, do a bone marrow biopsy, and then it's the actual diagnosis. But literally what I had, which was 36% blast cells in your blood, that is leukemia. Once you're past 20%, you have leukemia. And that was me. So the first few days in the hospital really was just getting used to the hospital. So many doctors. That night I came in, I've never stayed in a hospital before. I barely even visited people in the hospital because I never really had much of my family members super sick. I've obviously had some do, surgeries, and they had to just stay in. The birth of my cousin, for example. But, just stuff like that. I was never in the hospital for something serious where I knew somebody was going to have to stay for a long time. So this was new to me. All the doctors just came, and all the doctors were hey, very concerned. They were really trying to let me know, Petal, this is a really serious thing you have right now. We had to get on it. I didn't know anything about cancer treatment. Nobody I knew ever had cancer, so this was new to me. I stayed that night in the hospital, and I remember I couldn't sleep, and I even texted my sister, and I was like, hey, I can't sleep right now. I'm just up. She was like, count sheep, and I'm like, okay, I'll try. But that night was still a blur. Nothing really sunk in that night, I would say. I do remember that my teammates were all texting me. Once I got to the hospital, stuff kind of just started sinking in. I was like, hey, whatever, I'm going to be here. It's you're going to have to just deal with what you're dealing with. This is why you've been feeling sick the past month. Really, genuinely, that night in the hospital, I was saying, at least now I know. Because I was not feeling good especially that entire week. I felt really bad. The next day, I got a PICC line inserted into my arm. Oh, I got it in this arm. So I had 2 PICC lines. So I had one in this arm, my second one, but my first one I got in my right arm. I've never even heard of a PICC line. You put it in your arm. I don't know if you can see this little scar, but this is where it was. PICC line was put in. I did a bone marrow biopsy. Bone marrow biopsy showed acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I started chemo the next day. So it was literally boom, boom, boom. PICC line, bone marrow biopsy, chemo. That was it. Initially, when I did get chemo for the first time, It knocked me out, girl. I was so tired and I was so nauseous. It was just nausea and fatigue, nausea and fatigue. The first chemos I did was vincristine and one called daunorubicin. I did those together on the same day, and then I got some time off before the next one. I stayed in the hospital for a little less than a month that time when I was admitted. I remember there was one particular moment when I did chemo on a day and I was feeling quite nauseous. I'm pretty sure I had a headache. I was just not feeling good. And because I wasn't feeling good, they were going to give me some medications that would help treat the symptoms or the side effects that I was feeling after the chemo. One of the side effects of that medication, though, is like fatigue. Like, it will knock you out. And I remember one of the volunteer coaches, she was texting me and I was just letting her know how nauseous I was and how like I probably want to like drink a smoothie, and she was going to bring me a smoothie. The nurse ended up giving me the medication to help me feel better. Why did it literally take like 2 minutes and I was out? I was falling asleep. I had the smoothie in my hand and I'm like literally lying down, eyes closed, with the smoothie in hand, like about to knock out. And I'm like, no, like I need to eat dinner. Like I can't skip a meal. Like I need to eat. I felt ill from chemo, but I didn't feel as bad, especially because of how spaced out the chemos were. I don't think I had more than 2 sessions in like a week. So I had one and then let's say a week break and another one, and it kind of went like that. So like I was fine with the chemo. I did have 1 or 2 spinal taps that I did during that time. But regardless, I felt at least towards the end of my stay in the hospital that I was feeling much better. And I was like, oh, my body is getting used to the chemo. Like if this is what it's going to be, then I'm fine. They told me that for the protocol that I was doing and for like acute leukemias in general, you have to do treatment for a very long time. So it was going to be taking over 2 years for me to finish the treatment. But in my head, I was like feeling so much better by the time I got to me being discharged from the hospital. I was like, 2 years like of this? Like I can do this for 2 years. I was like, this is fine. I think another thing is the fact that I was just feeling so much better because when I got into the hospital, I felt so ill. So maybe once the chemo started, attacking the blast cells, the cancerous cells, then maybe I was like feeling much better. Maybe that's why I thought I felt fine, and maybe I didn't really feel that fine. But all I remember is that I didn't feel that bad leaving when I was discharged. So I was discharged from the hospital around the end of September, and I was going to be doing outpatient chemotherapy. And that is when everything just kind of did a little switch on me, because I underestimated how everything was going to go. I underestimated chemo's wrath and all the symptoms or side effects I was going to be feeling. Thinking about how I was in the thick of it, like when it was going on, I was so ill. I was so sick. I guess for induction, when they first start you on chemo, they don't immediately like start hammering you with like a bunch of chemos. But once I was outpatient, like that's when the aggressive chemo started, and that's when I really started feeling it in my body. I lost a lot of weight, very slim, very frail. I was very fatigued a lot of the time. I could not get out of bed. I would lay in bed for a long time. I would end up falling asleep early. Like I was just not feeling good. And what was worse for me is the reason why I was even losing so much weight was because of the simple fact I couldn't eat at all. For 2 months straight, the thought of food made me feel disgusted, which is crazy because when I was actually in the hospital, I was on steroids. I was on prednisone. And the thing about these steroids, they make you crave food. So when I was in the hospital, I was craving so much food. Oh my gosh. Anyone can attest to this who was around me at that time. I was like, I needed to eat certain foods when I needed it. If I was craving popcorn with like the little cheese on popcorn, I needed to eat that. I was eating weird combos. I had like the strangest things. There was one point I was into like sushi. I've never eaten sushi. Since I was immunocompromised, I couldn't eat real sushi. I was just eating sushi like with cooked chicken in it. Still, I was craving that. I wanted Vietnamese food. I wanted everything, like grapes on pizza. I was just doing everything, combining all types of foods together, eating such large portions. Like food was scared of me. Like I wasn't scared. No, food was scared of me because I was eating literally anything and everything because of those steroids got me craving. And what those steroids also did, they gave me a swollen face, because another side effect of taking these steroids is moon face. That was something I did want to address, because I know a lot of the time, sometimes, especially when I was in the hospital a few months ago, some have commented that they noticed that my face was swollen and my neck was swollen. I was on steroids. They give you moon face because of the water retention that happens when you take those medications. So I didn't even know that, though, when it initially happened. I remember the first day my face was swollen, and I'll put the picture and video in. Literally, it was barely swollen, and I noticed that it was swollen, and I told the nurse, I was like, my face looks a little swollen to me. Even then, they didn't explain what was going on. And it wasn't until after my friend, I think, actually explained steroids to me. But anywho, so I was craving food in the hospital. But then when I was out an outpatient, I could not eat a thing. Like, I was so sick of food. I remember especially walking past an IHOP, and there was these pancakes, like this image of pancakes on the IHOP. If I looked at that, it made me want to vomit. Like, I could not look at that. And for pretty much 2 months straight, I only ate the same thing every single day, because that's all I was able to tolerate. And what it was a PB&J sandwich, a little bit of cheese. For lunch, maybe a smoothie. And then for dinner, literally, I would eat pasta with pasta sauce. That's it. Literally, that's all I could stomach sometimes. And thankfully, I would ensure that they would give me, it has proteins and it has like minerals and it has all types of stuff in it when you're like, especially not getting all the foods you can get in. I was doing whatever I can to get food in me, but that was horrible. And it was really hard seeing my body just kind of deteriorate in front of me, just seeing how much weight I was losing, seeing my moon face, seeing how ill I was feeling how ill I was feeling, having to be in bed all the time because I was so sick. Just all of that was really bad. I also was dealing with spinal headaches. Spinal headaches are essentially a side effect that you can get after doing a spinal tap. And that's just is when there's too much pressure in like the cerebral spinal fluid, because what happens with a spinal tap is they put a needle into your back and they take out cerebral spinal fluid, and they would put in chemo. And what they would do with the cerebral spinal fluid, they would test it to see if there's any cancer in it, and then the chemo is obviously to just knock out cancer or make sure there is no cancer, what have you. A side effect is a headache, especially if you get a spinal leak. So if the cerebral spinal fluid starts leaking out because the hole from where they inserted the needle doesn't close up, it can start leaking out, and that can give you a really bad headache. The amount of times I've gotten a headache were atrocious, but there was one time in particular I got a headache where I was actually required to go into the hospital. And what I did to fix that headache, or what they did to fix that headache, was something called an epidural patch. And might I tell you, that was so painful. It almost was more painful than the headache. I don't know if that's the same case for everyone. That was my personal experience. Essentially with an epidural patch is they take blood out of your arm or blood out of your body somehow, and they inject it into your lower back where you had the spinal tap. And what's supposed to happen is that the blood is supposed to close up the hole, so there's no more leaking. Usually when I'm getting spinal taps, I seldom make noise. Even when I get a bone marrow biopsy, I seldom make noise. But that patch, I was like, the headache didn't go away immediately. For some people, they say that it does. For me, it didn't. But it did go away eventually, and I was out of the hospital from that spinal headache. I haven't really been getting them as of late, so knock on wood that I don't get them again. I think maybe my body's used to the spinal tap, and that's how it works. I don't know how it works. I remember the first time I did get one, and that was all in the September, October, November of 2022 period. That's when a lot of things did happen. My first spinal headache was during then. What had happened was when I was in the hospital, I was a week into my junior year of school. I wanted to continue doing school while in the hospital, and I did continue doing school. I did have to drop a few classes because some professors didn't want to uphold my accommodations, but that's besides the point. But most classes were amazing. And of course, with school, you got exams. So there was one point in particular, I had a spinal tap done and I had chemo done on the day. And I had an exam that I was already like a month behind, because I'm pretty sure they wrote the exam while I was in the hospital, but then I didn't write it. And I was already very behind in that class, but I really wanted to just get it over and done with. So they do the spinal tap. I kid you not. I don't know what was wrong with me. Why am I literally studying during the spinal tap? I had my notes open laying on the table, reading my notes as I get a spinal tap. But anyway, they recommend for me personally, especially, that I would lay down after a spinal tap at least for an hour and like kind of like just chill out for the rest of the day. Don't do anything crazy so you can avoid getting the headache. For some reason, after that happened, I take the elevator up to my professor's office and he was just leaving. Like it was 4:50 something. I was like, hey, I kind of wanted to write the exam today. Is that a possibility? He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I just got a spinal tap, but I really want to write it. He was like Petal, you just got it. Like, are you sure? I'm like, I'm sure. I also had another exam in the evening for another class. And before that exam, I had a meeting that I did not have to go to because it was like a team meeting, but I wanted to go. So after I wrote this exam, I go to my team meeting. And then after the team meeting, I actually left the team meeting early so I can go to my evening exam. I go to my evening exam. Boom. This is what I got done in that whole day. Chemo, a spinal tap, an exam, a meeting, another exam. And then I got home. Lo and behold, guess who in the middle of the night wakes up in pain and just ill? Me. I woke up and I was just feeling so sick and I had the worst headache. And ever since then, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do anything crazy after I get a spinal tap. And now every time I get a spinal tap, I actually take the day off and relax. I think at the moment I was like, oh, I'm fine. Because I already had gotten a few before that. And I was like, I was fine after those. Like, I'll be fine after this one. No, we're not going to risk it. We're not doing anything crazy after spinal taps anymore. Another thing that happened during that fall was that I got dystonia in my neck and back. So my whole upper body, pretty much, dystonia. So what's dystonia? Dystonia is involuntary muscle movements or contractions. I one day was feeling very nauseous. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even hold down a banana. I couldn't even hold down a protein drink. This happened many times to me, but I was really nauseous on the day. Because I was nauseous on the day, I took a medication called compazine or prochloroperazine, but we're just going to call it compazine because it's a mouthful saying the full thing. This is an anti-nausea medication. I still was feeling very nauseous. I tried eating a banana and all of a sudden my body starts kind of like doing like this. Like it's kind of just like motioning like up and down. I was thinking maybe it's because, I just threw up. Maybe my body's trying to prepare to like throw up again. And then it just got like stronger. Like I was really like going like this, like much stronger. And it was at that point I was like, maybe I need to go to the hospital. So I was trying to call the cancer center. And at the same time, I was texting my roommate and I was like, hey, like, is it okay if I get a ride to the ER? And she was like, yeah, like, of course. Like, as we pull up to the ER, I'm like going crazy. Like my body was really moving like bad. And then fortunately, before we got in the ER, the cancer center said, oh, you can just come to the cancer center. And I went to the cancer center. And why is it that when I was in the cancer center, my body was like going like that. And then my body started like going forward like this. And then my neck was starting to do it. My neck was going, it kept going like that. It kept going fully to the side, fully to this side, fully to this side. And the nurses, they're like scrambling, trying to get like blood work done because they need to get cultures. And I had a PICC line in, but when you're doing cultures, you have to get like blood not from the PICC line just in case there's something in the PICC line. So they're trying to get blood from my arm. And I'm a hard stick. Like we all know this, but I think especially since I was not feeling good, it was taking way longer. So they had to pull out the ultrasound machine so they can try finding a vein. We were sitting there for like over an hour, I'm pretty sure. And just like, this is my body the whole time. It just keeps going down. Neck keeps randomly going like this. Then it would go this way. Then it would go this way. And then my face started twitching like this. And then I was like, somebody tell it to stop. Like I could not control like how I was looking, Renaissance World Tour, Beyonce, like I'll put in the clip. That was me. That was me. And my oncologist, he was just like, like girl, like what's going on here? And he's like, okay, we're going to admit you to the hospital. I'm like, okay. Like, please. I'm still, while they're wheeling me to the hospital, still going crazy, neck moving all sorts of directions. I got to the hospital and we had to do x-rays. We had to do so many tests, but I was doing that for hours. And finally, they gave me some Benadryl and they gave me some other medications. I fell asleep. I woke up and I wasn't doing it anymore. So we found out what had happened was from the compazine that I took. The compazine that I took, one of the side effects could be dystonia, or they call it pyramidal effects. So we had to cross that off the list of medications not to take. Now it's on my allergies for medications. Well, yeah, that was doing it for I'm pretty sure I must have fell asleep maybe before 12 a.m. And the weird neck stuff started probably at like 1 p.m., 2 p.m. So I was doing it for hours, nonstop, neck going crazy. The next day I woke up, such a sore neck, back so sore, shoulders. Like, so that was one of the things that happened during that fall 2022 period that I mentioned were terrible. Also, like mentioned in my TEDx talk, was cancer ghosting. That was prime time for cancer ghosting because that was the illest I was. That was the most away I was from people. That also was just possibly some of the hardest parts about that whole ordeal, was just like feeling like I was very isolated. You don't understand how thankful I was for the friends and the people who genuinely like came to like my room whenever I wasn't feeling good and would just talk to me. Eventually, we're gonna fast forward into March. I ended up shaving my head. I kept my hair in twists the whole time I was doing chemo because I knew I'd probably be losing my hair. Literally, when I was first admitted in the hospital, one of the staff members was like, yeah, you're gonna lose your hair in 2 weeks. Like, from when I first started chemo, like 2 weeks from then. And I was like, well, he's like, yeah, it's gonna be all on your pillow. That was not the case. Even when I did take it out the twist and like washed it and like detangled it, it didn't fall out until March. Like, that was the day I really wanted to like get it all out because I knew the shed hairs were like falling into the twists. So I knew it was gonna be a mess. I took out the twists, start doing my hair, whoop-de-doo, I'm balding. So I shaved my head that day at a barbershop and was just kind of going through the motions of treatment. 2023 really was a blur. I was able to travel a little bit that year. I went to LA in May, and then at the end of 2023, I ended up going to Barbados with my family. So that was fun. So there's highlights, but then there's also like lowlights, you know what I mean? 2023 started off the same way kind of 2022 did, because I was diagnosed 2022, the first week of school, was in the hospital. Why is it that in 2023, I posted this on my TikTok, 2023, I was also in the hospital on the first day of classes because my liver was acting a fool. You know, chemo's hard on the liver. So the first day of classes of my senior year, and I was in there for like 2 weeks doing all sorts of stuff, liver biopsies, which I ended up getting like internal bleeding from. That was painful. And only 1% of people after a liver biopsy get internal bleeding. So somehow, some way I fell into that 1%. We started off the school year rough. I was like ready. I was like, okay, nothing can be worse than last year because last year I was diagnosed the first week into school and whatever. No, this time it was the first day of school. Like, it was not playing with me. 2024 came. 2024 was supposed to be good. We were going to start our last semester of college. And then we're going with the motions. Everything's going fine. And it was February, the beginning of February. I am feeling so ill, couldn't eat at all. Toilet situation was a mess. And there was one day in particular, I went to the cancer center and they ended up prescribing me some antibiotics because I had a gut infection, and they are pretty strong antibiotics. What was it that I was taking? Oh my. That is so funny. I feel like I blocked out what the antibiotic was called because of how bad it made me feel. I mean, I can check my records to see what it was, and put it on the screen. But anyway, I was prescribed an antibiotic and I only had to take it for 3 days. So 1 pill each day. I took it for the first day, felt really bad. After that, I took it on the second day. I was getting like tingly face, couldn't get up, feeling so sick. I was just laying on the couch all day. Even when I was sleeping, I was feeling quite ill. Like, I was like really just not feeling good. And the next day I woke up, I'm dizzy as ever. Like, I was trying to brush my teeth. I could not brush my teeth. I was like barely moving. Tried to go to the living room, fell myself on the couch, and I was like, I need to go to the ER. Went to the ER, admitted that day. Literally 0 white blood cells. My white blood cells were probably 0.2, 0.3, they're saying, and I had 1,000,001 infections. So last month when I was in the hospital, I had an infection in my gut, I had an infection in my blood, in my lungs, and on my skin. And they were all really bad. So I had 4 infections and they were all very serious. I had E. coli in my gut, PCP in my lungs, Pseudomonas in my blood, and on my skin, I had ecthyma gangrenosum. I need to just do a video on all of these in itself because the way my body was not trying to heal because my white blood cells were so low. Everything was affecting me. My nails were breaking apart, not healing. Sores were in my mouth, not healing. Everything where if there was something little minor that happened, it did not heal because my white blood cells were not trying to heal it, especially with all the infections. These were like opportunist infections. So it's like they come in when they see that like they have a target that they can really, attack for real, because I was so immunocompromised and I was so sick. It was like one came and I was like, oh, the other came. Nope. The other came. Nope. The other came. And that's how I got all of them at once. So I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. And the thing about ecthyma gangrenosum, which is interesting, is it has the ability to open wounds on your skin. That was one of the main issues, was the wounds on the skin that started forming. But before they even formed, I was in pain the whole entire time during my hospital stay this March 2024, because with the ecthyma gangrenosum, I had it in my legs. It hurts so bad. I actually had a walker that I was using the entire month, and I actually used that walker when I was at the hospital. So when I posted that on my YouTube community post, like, hey guys, I'm in the hospital, I can't post, I was so seriously sick. That was possibly the most sick I've ever been in like the past 2 years of dealing with all like this cancer stuff and treatment. It took me over a month for me to be able to walk again, like properly without limping. And the wounds, I had 3 open wounds on my body, and it took all of them over a month to like close up. During that time, even with the wounds, I got to do so many things. I did my TEDx talk on cancer ghosting. I got to film on Jubilee, which was such a fun experience. I had such a great time. Everyone on the panel was so lovely. It was really just like empowering being able to share our stories as both cancer patients and cancer survivors. I love just meeting other patients and just like being able to talk about things that we all can kind of relate to regarding cancer. After that, in May, I graduated. So I graduated from West Virginia University with a bachelor's in exercise physiology and also doing pre-med. So on the pre-med track, meaning I'm possibly planning on applying to med school. That is going to be kind of, what I'll be just working away at. Health-wise, I'm still doing treatment. Like I mentioned, it's an over 2-year protocol. So I started in August 2022. I'm not even technically at 2 years even yet. So I'll be approaching 2 years soon. And then after 2 years, I will just have like a few more months to go and I should be done. It's looking like I should be finished maybe around December-ish. So I'm definitely going to do a huge celebration for that. I'm looking forward to it. But yes, still doing treatment, just in maintenance chemotherapy. So that's a little lighter chemo, or much less intense than the chemo that I was doing at some point. Because there was some point that I was actually doing chemo every single day for like 2 weeks straight. Then you get like a week or 2 off. 2 weeks straight again, not doing any more of those intense chemos, but still doing spinal tap, still doing like oral chemo, intravenous chemo for the next few months or so, and then I should be done. And yes, that is the update that I wanted to give. Honestly, I could have touched a little more on different topics, and I really honestly just wanted to come and talk to you guys. If there's anything in particular that you want me to dive into, or if I rewatch this and see that, oh, maybe I should do a video on this, I will do such, because honestly, there was so many things that happened in the past 2 years. Starting this YouTube channel, I started it in July of 2023, so we're almost approaching a year, and I'm so grateful for how much it's grown and how many people I've been able to connect with, and how seen a lot of patients have been mentioning feeling. I know when I was initially sick, especially in fall 2022, I would just watch videos, and I would try finding videos of people going through, somebody who had dystonia, or somebody who had a spinal headache and what happened, somebody who had this happen to them and maybe a doctor didn't listen, somebody who had this happen and maybe this happened. I was trying to find multiple stories like that, and I couldn't find any stories like that online. So I just said, you know what? Let me just make them myself. I feel like these stories are so important to be talked about. I'm so grateful that I was able to start the channel and just like create more awareness for patient stories. And I really do have so many plans for this channel on things I want to do, especially for patient advocacy and raising awareness on many people's stories, including your own stories. So all of that is in the works. I do plan on posting more updates about me, especially on my Instagram and on my TikTok. So you can follow my Instagram and TikTok. It's just my name, Petal Palmer. Type that in on Instagram, type that in on TikTok, and you will find me. Also, I do have a Patreon. I know a lot have been asking how to support me. And I started the Patreon because of that. And I do appreciate the Patreon supporters. I put the supporters all at the end of the video for credits. So if you do want to be on credits right now, that's the only tier I have. And please comment below letting me know if you want to see any more videos, anything in particular. You can just comment that below. I do try replying to messages that I get, but I've been getting so many more messages because there's just so many of you guys. So it is hard for me to reply to every message I get on Instagram and on TikTok, but I do try my best to, or even emails, I do try my best to reply to those. I'm going to be getting much better at that. Trust me, that is my goal of summer 2024 is to get better at replying. Also, thank you for 150,000 subscribers. I hit that today before filming and I was like, oh, I mean, well, what a perfect day to film for congratulations for 150,000 subscribers. You guys are the best. I really appreciate all your support. I don't think you understand how much I mean it when I say I genuinely appreciate all of your support. It really does mean a lot, and I'm so grateful to have all of you guys and reading all of your comments and being able to talk to you guys and being able to post videos and just doing all that. But yes, that is it for today's video. No case, but just talking about myself and what I got going on at the moment. I hope you enjoyed, and please comment your thoughts, please comment your opinions, please comment any questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any other videos on medical cases, crime, and mysteries. Bye now.